Hello, fifth graders, and happy Tuesday. So as you can see, you have both myself and Mrs. Visconti here.
Surprise!
We are so excited to be recording a reading lesson, a double teacher reading lesson as a little surprise for our last week of learning for you. We hope you enjoy watching our lessons as much as we're enjoying making them. So if you are here right now, it means that yesterday you should have read chapters 34, 35, and 36, right?
Yes.
You should have read those chapters yesterday so that you are prepared for today's lesson. All right, let's get started. This is so fun, Mrs. Visconti.
So exciting.
So today we will be reading chapters 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41. Sounds like a lot, but they're super, super short chapters. Some are like 1 minute and 30 seconds. So today we'll be talking about how good readers analyze how an author strategically sets a mood and a tone for their story. That will make more sense after you learn from us. Okay, so I'm going to start with mood. Everything in purple I'll be teaching you, and then Mrs. Visconti will follow talking about tone, which is everything in pink. So the mood is the feeling that you get as a reader while you're reading. So the mood can change from chapter to chapter simply because your feelings as a reader can change as different events unfold. So think back to a novel that you have read, and the way that novel makes you feel is the mood of the book. And generally, different readers will feel similar feelings as they're reading a book because it's intentional. A mood is set on purpose by an author. So sometimes as you're reading, you might feel frightened if it's a spooky story, maybe a Halloween story. You might feel disgusted. You might feel angry if the main character is someone who bothers you or irks you. You might feel sad. You might feel happy. You might feel hopeful, or you might feel scared. These are all different moods that you can feel while reading a story. And again, it's always intentional that the author is setting this mood. And it will usually change from chapter to chapter. You won't feel the same way in the beginning of the story that you do in the end. And Mrs. Visconti, for tone?
For tone. So hi, readers. So for tone, this is the narrator's attitude while telling the story, or really what the author is trying to how they're trying to set the mood. And like Miss Madison had said, it is intentional. How the narrator sets up the tone is going to affect how you're feeling in that chapter, okay? And the story can have more than one tone, just like Miss Madison said with mood. So it can change from chapter to chapter. And some typical tones that you'll kind of get from chapters could be maybe it's an angry tone, maybe it's something cheerful or sad or serious. So it's kind of similar to mood, except that this is what the author is trying to get across, rather where mood is what you're feeling, okay? So mood's a little bit more personal, and the tone is kind of what the author is setting up for you, what they're expecting you to kind of get from that, okay, if that makes sense.
All right, so we put together 2 tiny little short stories for you, and we're going to listen, and then we're going to talk about what we think the mood of this story is, okay? Now, again, the mood is the feeling that you get as a reader, okay? So simply ask yourself, what am I feeling as I'm reading this? Sarah woke up on Saturday morning to the smell of bacon and eggs. Her stomach growled as she rushed down the stairs to the kitchen. Her mom was standing at the stove putting eggs on a plate. "Good morning, sweetheart. Ready for breakfast?" her mom asked. Sarah shook her head happily and sat down to eat. The bacon was just as she liked it, and she enjoyed eating with her parents and her little brother Jimmy. Talking about the park reminded Sarah that her dog Buddy wasn't anywhere in the kitchen. It was odd because he's always near when the smell of bacon is in the air. "Mom, Dad, where is Buddy?" Sarah asked. So I love this little short story, not a story, paragraph, because the mood changes from the beginning to the end. In the beginning, I was feeling happy. I was feeling excited. I was maybe even feeling like a little joyful for her, thinking back to some of my experiences having breakfast with my family. And then very quickly, the mood changed, and I was feeling a little bit concerned. I was feeling a little worried, and I was no longer joyful and happy. So as you can see, a mood will simply change in one story to the next very quickly. So again, I just wrote it here for you. Excited, happy. It was an overall positive mood in the beginning. And then in the end, worried, fearful, and nervous. Okay? Now, Mrs. Visconti, did you feel similar moods that I did in that short little paragraph?
Exactly. I felt exactly how you did. I was kind of reminiscing. I was thinking about a lovely breakfast. I'm like, oh, I actually might want to have this for breakfast tomorrow, right? And then, I actually thought of if I didn't see my dog around, right? And I know like you probably feel the same way about Scout, I would definitely be concerned and, definitely worried and fearful. So absolutely, I agree.
Mrs. Visconti, I love that you mentioned about thinking about your dog when you read that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. We made a connection with our background knowledge to help us feel a certain mood. Maybe if somebody didn't have a dog, they wouldn't have felt as fearful or nervous as we did. So I guess a little bit of your own personal experiences can affect the mood that you feel in a story.
We're always making those connections, Miss Madison.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Visconti.
Okay, so readers, let's do some practice to figure out what the tone is for this excerpt here. So the moment the words were out of my mouth, I wished I could take them back. I didn't mean to hurt Keith's feelings. He's such a nice person and he certainly doesn't deserve to be treated so poorly. I guess the stress from my job has been more than I can handle. Instead of taking my problems out on him, I need to deal directly with the people who create the stress. If only I didn't care so much what people thought of me at work, then this would not have happened. So readers, this is really different from what we just read with Miss Madison, right? So let's kind of think about the tone. What is the narrator's attitude that they're trying to get across here? Okay, so, I had said that this was definitely very different from sitting at a round table with breakfast and having breakfast with your family, right? So there was definitely some regret in this excerpt here, right? This person was definitely feeling that, they shouldn't have hurt Keith's feelings. They obviously did something wrong. Okay, so they're feeling that regret. I think that they're also feeling kind of sorrowful, right? Like the tone of this was like sad and upsetting. And think about when you do something wrong, right? And you're feeling regretful, you feel sad about it. Okay. And lastly, definitely guilty. Okay. So a combination of these three tones, or these three moods, I guess, really kind of made up the tone in this paragraph. It was definitely kind of heavy, which is something that Miss Madison's going to be talking about a little bit later with you. So that was the tone or rather the tones, because they can always have more than one. Yeah. So the mood and tone will, I forgot I was doing this one, Miss Madison. So the mood and tone will both change from chapter to chapter. Very rarely will the mood and tone stay consistent throughout a book. And readers, if you think about it, that would be really boring, right? If you read an entire book and chapter after chapter, it's maybe just butterflies and rainbows and everything's great, it's kind of like, well, where's like the suspense? Where's like, the good stuff, okay? It really makes it more exciting, a book where you have different moods and different tones. You want to feel different things. And, authors, that's what their job is. They want to make you feel different things with their writing. Okay. So, a story can start out one way and end completely differently. An author can change and grow in a story, which can affect the tone. Okay. So think about, books that we've read. This is absolutely happening. Think about Holes. Right? Stanley had changed as a character in the way that, we were presented with the tone and how we were feeling. Okay. We may have felt that in the beginning, he was definitely, maybe we felt like it was maybe more of a serious tone, right? Where he was stealing the shoes, he was sent to Camp Green Lake. But then think about at the end, right? When he made friends with Zero, they were celebrating, in, you know, they found the treasure, things like that. Okay.
Okay, so what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna think of mood and tone from some events in Crash. Okay, so we're gonna pull one event from the beginning of the story and one towards the end. So the first thing we were thinking was when Penn and Crash first met. We felt like that was, that was chapter 1. It was one of the bigger, more important events. And when they first met, the mood that I was feeling as a reader was a little bit hopeful and excited. I was thinking to myself, wow, this seems like, it might be a really great friendship. Penn might help Crash grow as a person. And then I was also feeling like a little bit angry at certain times when they were first meeting and getting to know each other. I didn't really love when he was teasing him and picking on him. I felt like he kind of wasn't treating him so nicely. And so that made me feel a little bit protective of Penn, because I was thinking to experiences in my own life. Wow, like what if, Penn was my little brother, and I was thinking I would feel really protective of him and I wouldn't want him around Crash. But overall, I felt like the mood in the beginning of the story when they were first meeting was very lighthearted and very light. And that just means there's no serious issues going on here. There was no if you compare it towards where we are in the story now, it was just light. Can you help me elaborate on light a little bit, Mrs. Visconti?
So I think that kind of just means that I think when you had said that there were just no serious issues, right? And if you kind of think about this chapter readers, they were first graders when they met, right? So first graders are just very young, childish, right? Like think about you in first grade or younger siblings, okay? You don't really take things that they say seriously. They don't typically act out of, by doing anything malicious or anything like that. So I think that's kind of what we mean by light.
Perfect. Thank you for adding that on. And so the tone of when Penn and Crash first met, Mrs. Visconti, I think we actually said it. So when the mood for the next part before we have the tone for that part coming up. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Is that
So I'll just go on and say the mood of when Scooter had a stroke, and then we'll go back to tone. Yeah. Okay, so then we were talking about when Scooter had a stroke, and this is where the mood completely did a 180 and it changed. And we felt like the mood, what we were feeling as readers, was a little bit sad, concerned, worried. I was thinking, oh my goodness, is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna be able to talk again? And it was heavy. This is now a serious issue. This is no longer just two friends in first grade meeting. This has become a more heavy story, and it's a little bit more heart-wrenching, because you imagine something like that happening in life. So the mood changed a lot from the beginning to the end of the story.
Absolutely. And then with tone, kind of going back to when Penn and Crash first met, so our tone, right, was kind of almost like that. It was kind of funny, right? It was sort of witty, right? Crash was pretty entertaining as a first grader, as a little kid. Even though he definitely was kind of teasing Penn a little bit, we just meeting Crash, we didn't really think too much of it, right? And especially because they're so young, it did come across as being a bit funny and light, like what Miss Madison had said. And then also, I kind of felt like the tone was maybe even a little sarcastic, right? Like Crash was sort of, using that sarcastic humor, which kind of comes across as very funny, especially when a first grader is trying to make these sarcastic comments. Okay. Now going back to when Scooter had his stroke. So, just like what Miss Madison had said, those feelings that we were feeling was because the tone was very serious, very sorrowful. They mentioned how Crash almost kind of was feeling kind of guilty, right? Especially when he didn't get Scooter a gift. So, we felt all those things, and Jerry Spinelli definitely made sure that the tone had changed from, drastically from these scenes.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Visconti, is it okay if you and I feel a different mood when we're reading chapters?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Miss Madison. We're different readers, right? We have different experiences. We make different connections. So absolutely, there's no right or wrong. It's just us as a reader.
Okay. So that is it for Mooned Tone with Miss Madison, Mrs. Visconti for today. After you finish this video, you're going to listen to chapters 37 through 41. Again, they're very short chapters. You won't be reading for more than 20 minutes, okay? And check back in with us on Thursday for another fun combo teacher duo mini lesson. It's been so fun.
I know, this was fun.
All right, my friends. See you soon.